Okay, we're good.
All right, let me get to my page here. Okay. So I guess we're supposed to actually say our names at the beginning of each one. I reread that this week. So I'm Cynthia Jansen. You want to go ahead?
Madison Hill.
Okay. So we're here for our for our discussion this week. We'll go ahead and talk about the things we read and the videos we watched. So we watched Dr. George Will's discussion about government and the important topics he discussed. So it said to choose one that you were personally interested in understanding and then research. So why did the government get involved in the issue? Has it been effective? And yeah, based on the speech, what could government be doing right now? So the thing that I was interested in was when he was talking about, I'm sorry, the funding, when he kept saying that, you know, Bill Gates has the same telephone that we have, or we may have a better cell phone, and that we're all equal, and yet it's still so unequal in so many ways. And the story that he actually gave about the man who sold at his shop, who was trying to, dry clean suits for 35 cents, that shocked me. I couldn't believe that really happened.
Over a nickel, right?
Yeah, like he was going to go to prison. I know he didn't end up going to prison, but even still, that's pretty awful. Was there a topic that struck you in particular?
Yeah, he talked about healthcare and how we don't have any skin in the game. You know, we can't go shopping for healthcare, you know, across state borders, which is crazy because, like, my healthcare before, like, I couldn't go to Idaho and get healthcare because it wasn't in my boundaries or it wasn't in my region. So I think it's really crazy. And so he said that it was during World War II that employees started providing healthcare because there was a wage control, so they couldn't compete with other companies for the remaining labor left in the country. And so they started paying for their healthcare, and then it's kind of just gone down from there. Mm-hmm. And so, I guess it was effective for a little bit, but, you know, now we just don't have any say in what's going on. And like he said, like, you can't ask the doctor, like, how much is this going to cost? One, like, they don't know, and two, like, we don't really care, I guess, because we don't have any. We're just like, oh yeah, I will get paid for it, whatever. But so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that actually, excuse me, that kind of struck home when they said, do you ask how much it costs? Like, I went to the dentist a few weeks ago, and they wanted to do some work. And seriously, I looked at them and I said, how much is this going to cost? Because I don't think I can't do that. And they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. The doctor had no idea how much it would cost. And nobody really does. And they go back and they send me this letter. And after insurance, it'll be about $2,000. And I'm like, no, there's no way that can be done, you know? And it's kind of scary that the doctors aren't even involved in that part. Like, they don't know. They don't really care. I mean, not that they don't care. They want you to be healthy, I'm sure. But it's interesting how things have kind of gotten away from the individual.
Well, so I just switched OBGs because my OBG he just got his license suspended. Like, he can't practice medicine anymore. And part of it is because of insurance fraud. And he was like an amazing, amazing doctor. Like, I loved him. But he was charging, like, because he had a lot of lower income people. And he would charge different things to the insurance company so that it would be cheaper for his patients. Because he knew that, so for example, like, I'm going through fertility, and so most insurances don't cover fertility, and mine covers, I don't remember, it covers more than most people's, but he would still, like, he would bill the insurance company differently because he knew that you know, they would cover it, but they wouldn't cover infertility. And he knew that some people couldn't get care because, so I think that's interesting that, you know, there really is, he was trying to help out his patients by, you know, helping them to be able to afford healthcare, to, you know, to get good healthcare. And then he lost his license over it, which is, you know, obviously it was fraud, but it's just interesting how you just reminded me of that. But.
Well, when you talk about that, it reminds me of the man who sold the suit, because if your doctor charged less, you know, because he can charge per se what he wants, but he really can't, because then he's compared to other doctors, he has to charge a certain amount because technically that's how much it costs. I mean, why couldn't he do something for so much less? You know what I mean? And he probably would. He sounds like a good guy, but he couldn't because he would get sued by the government per se, or by maybe another doctor. So he tried to find a way around it. And like you said, it wasn't honest, but he had good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad. He was trying to find another way around it to help people. And that's, again, a lot of government involvement. And I don't know. It's so funny. Maybe it's propaganda from childhood. I didn't realize how much the government was involved in our lives. Maybe I'm just selfish and I just look at myself and don't realize it, but I love this class. It's so enlightening. Like, it's amazing. Sorry, again, I get off topic really easy.
No, this class really does. It like opens my eyes. Like, I didn't know anything about the UN, you know, like all that stuff that's going on with them. Because I took a class last semester, and we talked about the UN, and like we focused on their millennial goals. And so we talked about like all their programs and how good they're doing and all the good that's coming from it. And then to this class, we're seeing like the other side of it. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then some of the presidential candidates are talking about how they don't like the UN. And would they, you know, if they get elected president, they wouldn't be involved with the UN. And it's like, oh man, there's more going on than I think. So I love this class too because of that.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I haven't been, I should, because of this class, I haven't been involved in listening to the presidential debates and stuff. But that's interesting that say they won't be involved in the UN, because you'd think that they should be involved in the UN to at least say their position. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's almost like they're avoiding the conflict, but that's not really going to help, just saying you're going to avoid the UN, because there's lots of people who are advocates like us, you know, who are going to the UN to listen, and they want to have a voice. And if people aren't there, you know, that's actually super interesting. I need to keep up with that. Okay. Let's see. It says, what could the government be doing right now to help the situation more effectively? I've kind of forgotten already what our main topic was.
About healthcare.
That's right. Okay. You can't come out.
And then you talked about, no, you're good. I should probably take notes since I have to do summary. So we talked about the healthcare, and then you talked about technology, right?
Yes, yes. Okay. Go back inside.
We're equal, but we're not.
Yeah, and the government's stance on that. Another thing that I thought was actually interesting was that he talked about the source of wealth, how it's progressed over the years, how it used to be land, and then it was capital, like the railroad and those kinds of things, and now it's education, which I think is very interesting, because they talked about Common Core a little bit, you know, the No Child Left Behind, not Common Core, but they talked about a little bit of that, and how equal is not always better, because they're just dumbing down. They're dumbing it down so they can get the funding that they need, and that's not very good.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the government is doing anything, honestly, to help any of these situations. I mean, with the healthcare, they're trying to make it easy for everyone to have healthcare, but I don't think that's actually solving any problems.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people like really struggle with Obamacare. Like some of them, like they can't get into it, or that it's more expensive than they thought, or you know,
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's not efficient at all.
No, I don't think it's very efficient, and I think it forces people to go places they don't want to go. I have a friend who had a birth control implant in her arm that was actually causing her a lot of infections in her body, and so she needed to get it taken out. But her insurance had changed slightly, so her own doctor that put it in would no longer take it out for her, and nobody would take it out for her. So they told her, her insurance told her she had to go to Planned Parenthood, and they would take it out for her because she didn't have any insurance. And she said, I'm not going to Planned Parenthood. I don't support Planned Parenthood. I'm not going to go there and be sitting there. And it made me sad that she was kind of forced into this situation where her doctors couldn't do it, and they forced her into something else. And so I don't think the government involvement in that is helping us with our individuality. Like he was saying, we need to have a little bit of space in our life where we can choose what we want to do, where the government is not involved. And I think it's becoming a smaller and smaller window where that's even possible.
Yeah, he really focused on how they're making us more dependent on the government. And I think especially with like this president, you know, we've had so many people on welfare programs, and it's just snowballing into a huge effect where we're so dependent on our government, and that's not a good thing.
I agree.
Freedom, like you said.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so we kind of just talked about this just a second ago, where it says, Dr. Will says, one thing you can do for your country is reserve a spacious portion of your life for which your country is not responsible. So reflect on what you've learned and discuss this week, and respond to the following. So do we agree with him, and in what areas do you feel personally that the government should be involved and should not be involved? When we had our other discussion this week in the other discussion board, where we had to pick a government influence, you know, in the country and talk about it, I did find some good things that the government has been doing. Like I did it on their help for those with disabilities and handicaps. I think that's actually great. They do a lot for those who can't help themselves. I mean, my nephew is mentally handicapped, and I don't know what my sister would do, honestly, without some help, because she works and my brother-in-law works full-time just to support the bills that they have to pay for him, but they still get a ton of government aid. And without that, I don't know what they would do. He probably would have to be in some home somewhere. And so I think that is good. But I see a lot of areas where I think it's way too much. What do you think?
No, I did my thing, my issue on the same thing about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's like my huge passion in life. I love working with people with disabilities, and there are so many families that have kids with disabilities, or you know, family member with disabilities, and they really can't, even though that they have good jobs and they're middle class. Like, there's no way they can afford those medical bills. Like, they're outrageous. And so if the government didn't, you know, help out, you know, they really would struggle. And so I think that's good. And there's a lot of opportunities now for people with disabilities that they didn't have, you know, before. So I think that's it. That was good. But there definitely are areas, like you said, like with our healthcare, or trying to control, I don't know, other aspects of our life. Like, I don't think it's good.
Well, it's interesting when you think about healthcare as well. So I know someone who works in healthcare. They're not a doctor, but they work like in the medical buildings. Like, they do a lot of the, you know, behind the scenes computer Excel spreadsheets, all the numbers and sort of things. And people in that building, they make a lot of money. And it's interesting that, I mean, some of them probably make almost as much as the doctors themselves. And this person tells me about trips that they take and luncheons that they go to that are supported by the hospital, and the hospital pays for. And I'm thinking, well, the hospital doesn't really pay for it. We are paying for it, and the insurance is like, it's all coming together. It's a business, and it's sad to me how that is so very corrupt. In the business of helping people really has not become the business of helping people. It's really how much money can we make. And it is very corrupt. I think it needs to, I don't know. I have no idea how someone would deal with that. It's so far from being okay. I don't know.
Well, I know, and then if you have someone that's in the office that can make a difference, like one, they're either not going to get reelected, or there's just, like you said, it's so far gone that like you can't really do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would take a lot, but.
Exactly. Okay, so that's pretty much everything, all the questions. So unless you have something else you want to talk about, which is fine, we can go ahead and sum up and send it in.
So did we agree with Dr. Will? Yes.
Yeah, we do. I do.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so the summary for our meeting, we talked about that the government is involved in like technology or with healthcare, and to the point where like we can't shop around for our own healthcare. They kind of tell us where to go, what to do, and so we don't have we don't have a choice with that. We talked about like the source of wealth, how equal, like in the school, how sometimes equal really isn't better. And so sometimes, can't even read. So government is helping the situation sometimes with certain groups, but for the most part, they're really making the American people more dependent on the government, and that's not a good thing. We have a lot more people on welfare, and they're not learning to be self-providers, to be able to work for their own good, and so that's going to make the government go into more debt. And he talked about that a little bit, about how our I wrote it somewhere, how our appetites, oh sorry, my dog just tried to jump on that, but how our appetites are too big and we don't have enough money to support it. And so with too many people on the government programs, we're taking too much. Our appetites are too big for the money that the government's bringing in. We do agree with Dr. Will when he talked about that we need to reserve a spacious portion in our life where the country is not responsible. And we talked about how healthcare again, and how Cindy brought up a point that her friend, her healthcare changed, and she wanted to get her birth control taken out of her arm, and because her healthcare changed, she had to go, had to switch doctors. She had to find a different place to get, she was forced into situations she didn't want to be in. And so we do need to, there does need to be parts where the government isn't responsible for parts of our lives. So did I miss anything?
No, that was perfect sum up. It was awesome.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Madison.
Yeah, no problem. Have a great week.
Thanks, you too. Bye.